At 6 o'clock, so I'm going to jump in to be respectful of everyone's time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dina Darlington. I'm the founder of Links to Equity, and I'd like to welcome you to webinar 3 of 6. It's our Alzheimer's disease community webinar series. And this evening, we have a very special guest speaker who we'll conduct an interview with, and it's Dr. Deborah Stroman, and we'll learn more about Dr. Stroman and my introduction to her and as we conduct our interview. Next slide, please, Jason. Okay, a little bit about Links to Equity. Links to Equity is a boutique consulting firm. We engage and partner with patient advocacy organizations, as well as industry partners, the pharmaceutical and biotech industry partners, to bring awareness and education to patient advocacy organizations or to patients in general. We also focus on access issues, values issues, but more importantly, health equity. And we try to illuminate issues that are important to diverse communities and to patient advocacy organizations. Next slide, please. Our team consists of myself as the founder, Catherine Boxell. She's our Director of Strategic Operations, as well as Joseph Coe, our program consultant for the Alzheimer's Community Webinar Series. Thanks to both of those. Huge kudos for all the work that they put in to preparing us for this session and the preceding and following sessions to come. Next slide, please. Okay, a little bit about our webinar series. Just very briefly, why are we here? We're here because by the year 2030, at 40% of our population diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease will represent Black and Brown communities. So 40% of those folks diagnosed will come from the Black and Brown communities. That's a huge incidence and rate, and we want to make sure that communities of color understand the disease, but also the resources that are available to them, and also begin to have a dialogue and talk about Alzheimer's to sort of remove the stigma. We know that stigma can be a roadblock or a challenge to engaging and learning more about a particular disease, and we want to remove that. So we want to have a conversation and a dialogue where we can learn from one another and we can share together. I'll say that the webinar series has been an important vehicle in doing just that. Many of our community leaders in this project have engaged their community, and we've really been able to have folks in the community, raise their hand and say, you know what, I have a diagnosis of early onset dementia. And they probably wouldn't have done that had it not been for their engagement and participation in these webinars. And now it started, one participant or community member specifically, she started raising that to her pastor. We then moved her into a article, an Essence article, where she shared her story. And now she just shares her story randomly and in general when she's talking to people, or she sees someone living with the disease, she gives them shares her experience. So we're super proud about her ability to engage and to educate and bring awareness and help others in the community. Next slide, please. So a key component of the work that we do and developing and sharing these webinar series is that comes from our advisory board. We have a community advisory board team that really helps us identify what are the topics we want to discuss, bring in their community and really lead that charge in bringing in community to participate in these webinar series, but also to share their expertise and their experience. Here you'll see a list of all of our community advisory leaders, and one in particular, I'm going to ask him to just say a few words about his work. What has his work done and why is his work so important as it pertains to educating on Alzheimer's disease? Pastor Owens, could you share a few words with us, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Dina. We appreciate all that you're doing to keep all of us involved. My name is Joseph Owens. I'm recently retired, nearly 6 months no longer the pastor at Shiloh Baptist, but the pastor currently is gracious enough to let me continue in this capacity. My excitement revolves around particularly the faith community. We have the opportunity to touch people when they're hurting, where they're hurting. Uh, so it's a duty and a responsibility to be sure we do something about the disproportionate lack of information and access that people have so that there can be some early detection to what's going on with Alzheimer's. So I'm excited about it. I want to do my best to be sure that other faith communities, particularly pastors, understand that this particular pain and hurt in a health issue is just as important as all the other things that we help our people to deal with. So I want to say thank you again, Dina, for giving us as a faith community the opportunity to get involved, stay involved, and get the word out so people can have access.
Thank you, Pastor Owens. We appreciate you and the work of the broader advisory board. Next slide, please. So as Pastor Owens just communicated sort of what this means to him and what the work he's done from a faith-based standpoint, we have different varying members on our community advisory board, and they are really our legs and our arms, and they get the word out by in-person touches, as Pastor Owens said, and at churches. But, you know, Pastor Owens and Jacqueline Lee, she is the chapter president of our Lexington, Kentucky Links chapter. They take flyers to barbershops and beauty salons. We have another pastor, Thurman. He goes to civic meetings. He's not only a pastor in a rural community, but he's also the president of the National Association of Black Vets. So he travels across the state of Kentucky and attends various meetings, and he's taking those flyers. We have community health fairs. We just had our links in Washington, D.C. Cheryl Tier, she's the president of that organization. They just had a community health fair last weekend in Washington, D.C. So they really are our arms and legs, and they really have a true meaning of community and have been just amazing with the work that they've been doing and getting that reach and spreading that word and really trying to get community a bit more engaged and understanding about Alzheimer's disease because of the urgency around it, but the impact to our Black and Brown communities. And in addition to doing their in-person outreach, they also do digital outreach where they're sending out emails, they're sending out social media, digital flyers, and really just trying to use every tool in our toolbox to continuously engage community. I don't want to react too soon, but we're even working on something, another iteration of how we're trying to be even more engaging with community. And I can't wait until I have the green light to share that with the broader community. But we're always looking at new, more innovative ways to have that reach so that we're reaching everyone in our communities. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our agenda today, we're going to have, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have the honor of interviewing Dr. Deborah Stroman. We're going to talk about the work that she does at Black Men's Brain Health, but also she is an adjunct professor at UNC as well as UVA, and she also does personal retreats around Black Men Health. So very interesting individual. We started working with her last year, and we're just thrilled to continue the relationship and partnership with her. We'll also do a community discussion. We want to leave enough time to not only address Q&A, but also if there's folks on the line that want to have a community dialogue, share, ask questions, ask for specifics as it pertains to maybe your personal situation. We want to do that as well. And then we'll have a survey in which we only get better because of you, and you can lead and guide us in that way. So we do a survey after each webinar to better understand what are we doing right and what can we do better to keep you attending, to keep you spreading the word, but also to make sure that we're sharing with you the most important information that's going to support you. And then I'll provide closing remarks at the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, we want your feedback, and here's the QR code. Please feel free to take your iPhone and scan this QR code. This QR code is going to take you to a survey, and it's going to ask you about your experience. As mentioned, we welcome your experience. I'm going to come back to this code at the end of our webinar, but if you'd like to go ahead and take a picture of it, to access it ahead of time, please feel free to do that now as well. Next slide, Jason. Okay, I can now introduce Dr. Stroman. Dr. Stroman is a former full professor. She's now an adjunct professor in the Department of Health Behavior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She specializes in leadership and strategy with a focus on health equity. And she's also an adjunct professor at the University of Virginia School of Leadership and Public Policy. Additionally, Dr. Stroman is an entrepreneur and active in community service, earning the 2021 Woman of the Year Award from the Chapel Hill Carrboro NAACP and the state of North Carolina's NAACP Woman of the Year. Dr. Stroman has over 3 decades of experience collaborating with academic and organizational leaders on leadership and equity issues. She is the conference coordinator for the Black Men's Health Brain Health Initiative and is a national speaker and trainer with the Racial Equity Institute, LLC, providing education on structural racism. As a former NCAA D1 basketball player and founder of the Center of Sport Business and Analytics, Dr. Stroman is a leading advocate for innovation and equity in higher education in the United States. Her academic backgrounds includes a BS from the University of Virginia and MA in Sports Administration from UNC and a PhD in Leadership and Organizational Behavior from Capella University. So we are in for a treat. I'm so thrilled to begin the interview that we have established this evening between me and Dr. Stroman. How are you this evening, Dr. Stroman?
I am doing well, and you know it is basketball season. I'm trying to not become mad with March Madness, but it's always a blessing to be able to spend time with you and your amazing company.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us this evening. Before we dive into the discussion, I know I just read your bio, but I wanted you to share about your background, both as an athlete. I think that's super interesting, and we'd all love to know more about that, and then your work with athletes. Given your experience, how have you found effective ways to engage men, particularly Black men, in conversations about brain health?
Well, again, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and good afternoon and good evening to all the good people on this webinar. I'll say it always starts at the beginning, right? But to say that I am from outside of Philadelphia really means a lot in terms of how I was raised and how I have come to be who I am today. But I did come out of the womb as an athlete. But I like to consider myself an athlete, an activist, and an academic. I was definitely a tomboy and played just about every sport that's available out there. In fact, kickball is still my favorite sport today. But I did attend the University of Virginia, played basketball there. And then after that experience, I had the opportunity to work for the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, in a leadership role. They had a big brother, big sister type program, and I had done that work as an undergrad and I was selected to be on the national team. During that time period, I found out that UNC Chapel Hill was starting a master's degree in sport administration. I wanted to stay in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and so I decided to join UNC. After my degree, I realized as a female, and also not having a lot of experience in that space. I had a degree, yes, but not a lot of experience. And what I was keenly aware of is that men had a much easier time to get those really, really good sport administration positions. And especially if you were a football coach, played football. And so I decided to do what a lot of athletes do. We go sell insurance. But I fell in love with it. absolutely fell in love with it. I realized that I'm a sales and marketing type person. So I started out, selling basic insurance and ended up a 17-year career as a corporate employee and leading and managing lots of sales teams and developing marketing programs, primarily for Prudential Financial. Did spend some time with GE Capital as well. And then the nerd bug kicked back in, and I decided to get my PhD for no rhyme or reason. I'm just a lifelong learner. And I attended Capella University, and I did that work, and I actually did it around leadership. And I found out that at my old department back at UNC, that they had an opening to be a professor. And so in 2007, I went to Chapel Hill, returned, and became a professor at UNC. And it has been a wonderful ride. Today, I like to say that I work in two buckets, in sport business and race and racism education. As you know, oftentimes they definitely meet together. And so here I am today, doing a lot of fun things. I did achieve full professorship at UNC, but now I'm winding down, although my friends and family members like to say that you're still building, you're still creating. But I still have a faculty appointment at UNC, and I teach a graduate course at the University of Virginia. But I started exploring things, and I fell in love with Costa Rica. And today I actually offer retreats for men of color in Costa Rica, bringing men to the magical place of Costa Rica to be able to learn and share. And it's men speaking to men. I just set up everything, but it's a wonderful, wonderful way to engage with men.
Wow, that's amazing. So one my question was, how do taking your background, how do you engage men? I know that I've worked with you with Black Men Brain Health, and I've seen you all in action, and it's an amazing experience. And I wholeheartedly would love for everyone on this call and beyond to have that experience. It's quite the experience to be a part of, to listen, to learn, and also to see around the world that others are incorporating many of the strategies and approaches that come out in that meeting, but learning from what's coming from that meeting. So truly an amazing opportunity I've been fortunate enough to experience. So recognizing that you have that under your belt, you have the retreats that you do with Black men under your belt. Are How do you feel about the conversations about brain health when you're bringing, like, is that an easy opener for you? Or do you feel that once they've already signed up for, say, a Black Men's Brain Health Conference or for one of your retreats, that conversation becomes easier? Or is there still the same stigma and all the things that we know exist that sometimes harbor those or prevent those conversations?
Well, my background is unique in the sense that I've been an athlete my entire life. And with that being said, I'm very confident and I'm very direct. That's the Philadelphia part, I guess you could say. And so when I think about how do we engage with Black men, certainly we found our secret sauce. And for the Black Men's Brain Health Initiative, we believe it's with connecting with men where they are most comfortable, where they are most comfortable. And even though there are a number of brave and safe spaces, sports and entertainment is one of those spaces for most men where they can go into dialogue. And when I couple that with my work around leadership, it's very important as we talk about these subjects that really are life and death situations that can be very harmful or very joyful. We have to learn to let go. And so if we can create spaces where men can be their authentic selves, realizing that there's no shame in being yourself or sharing your vulnerable truth, then we feel that is a way to connect. And no doubt that can happen at a retreat, and especially with a small group of men being able to share with one another. Now, it's not some random thing, right? I have licensed facilitators to do the work. And it's the same thing with the conference. The Black Men's Brain Health Conference is held every year during Super Bowl week in the Super Bowl city. And so we've engaged with those who use words that half the population can't even spell, let alone say. And then we also have people who are from the community. people who might not use perfect King's English, people who might dress with jeans, and I'm not talking about those $500 pair of jeans, people who come in and can be themselves. And we think we have a very, very unique combination of doing care and collaboration in a format that will address men. But again, we believe that sports and entertainment, music is a way to definitely capture the hearts and minds of men.
That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that, and lots of positive feedback. I'm going to just very quickly, because as you were talking, lots of questions were coming in and hands being raised. So I'm going to ask that, and I should have said this earlier, please type in the chat your question, and Catherine will collect that, and we'll be sure that Dr. Stroman has time to respond to your question. So thank you so much. And we'll jump back in with understanding disparities and sort of how Dr. Stroman addresses that, recognizing that Black Americans are at this high risk that I talked about a little earlier of developing Alzheimer's disease. And I'll say African American women are actually at a higher risk than the men, but we're as a whole, we're at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease than our white counterparts. What are some key factors contributing to this disparity, and how can we address them?
Key factors, I like to think of it in three buckets: the physical, the social, and the mental. The physical is inflammation in the body. And so I know we're going to have some more time, and I'll talk more about what we can do to help reduce or eliminate inflammation in the body. The social is the lack of community engagement, as in spending time alone. And listening to our best and brightest scientists and researchers at our conference, I've learned about the importance of, as we age, spending time with other people. Now, for women, oftentimes it's very natural. In fact, we still go to the restroom together, right? We go on girls' trips. We have card parties, the movies, and all of that. But for men, generally, they tend to isolate themselves. And isolation and disassociation is very, very unhealthy. And so we have to do things, as in be intentional, to help men to engage with other men. Now, we know the barbershop is still popular, right? Men want to look good, but generally that's every 2 weeks. Now, there are some men who go almost every other day, but in general, still that is enough. That is not enough engagement. And so physical, social, and then the last is mental, which is the stress of racial trauma. And I wish I had enough time to go into the history of what has happened to us. And I really mean that, what has happened to us by being brought here. Not all Africans, but a great deal of us were brought here against our will. And what does that mean today? In a short way, I could say that we have a lot of increased vigilance and suspicion of social institutions, whether that's schools, agencies, the government. Sometimes we avoid eye contact, and we only trust persons within our own social and family relationship networks. And so we're suspicious. And that a constant having a sense of, is someone going to harm me? Is someone going to look out for me? That increases our cortisol levels in our body. And so I think it's important that we acknowledge the past, although certainly there are things that are happening today that we don't even have to look back in history to say there's a sense of mistrust. But this is very, very important. So I'd say physical, social, and mental. And then I will also like to think about how we were raised and what we call the layers of psychological shaping, as in what were the family interactions? How did we respond to media images as we're aging? How do people perceive us? So from a young age, in particular, boys are taught to be aggressive, right? To defend themselves, to be the protectors, to show little to no emotion. And really, it's about not appearing feminine. And so this whole thing around being open, learning to be open with ourselves, learning to let go is a big part of these disparities and things that contribute to the disparities.
Thank you for that. Again, you're getting tons of feedback as you're talking. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit to stigma. I talked about stigma early on and the cultural barriers that exist as it pertains to getting an early diagnosis or getting family members to talk about a loved one or parent or relative with Alzheimer's. So many Black families struggle with discussing cognitive decline due to the stigma and the misinformation. How can we change the conversation around Alzheimer's disease in Black communities to promote early detection and support?
Well, to your point, there's no doubt that we as a community, we're at the top or at the bottom, depending, which lens you put on. But we're at the top or the bottom of the worst outcomes in just about every system that exists today, whether we look at education, whether or not we look at economics and banking, and certainly healthcare. And so when we consider Alzheimer's disease, first off, I want to say, according to the World Health Organization, more than 55 million people all across the world suffer from dementia, but 60 to 70% is in Alzheimer's. But there are other forms of dementia. And when we think about Alzheimer's, it's only been since maybe the 80s that we've had a hypothesis or a supposition in terms of why it's occurring. So with that being said, we haven't had the long runway like heart disease or cancer. We haven't had the many, many years of clinical study and the marketing and all different aspects, like some of the ways that you mentioned previously. And so we're still on the short end of getting this started. Now, what I'm excited about is that we are moving with great momentum now. But certainly we have to talk about Alzheimer's and not go back to our very common sayings in our culture. Oh, that's just a part of aging. Oh, she's just forgetful now. But we have to remember to connect the dots in terms of the number of occurrences and the quality, as in how bad these occurrences are taking place. We just can't push it aside and say, oh, that's just grandpa, No, we need to take action, and we need to be really, really cognizant of what is happening to our loved ones.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned a little earlier, I, so enjoyed myself when I attended your conference, the Black Men Brain Health Conference. It was an amazing event, and the work is truly groundbreaking. Curious if you can share insights on how brain health impacts Black men specifically, and the importance of targeted outreach and research.
Well, I'm a firm believer, especially as one who does racial equity education, that when you harm the child, you harm the family. And when you harm the family, you harm the neighborhood. And when you harm the neighborhood, you harm society. And so there's no reason for anybody to question why we're in the state that we're in today. It starts with the family. And men are critical in the sustenance of the Black family. And I'm not talking about you have to have a ring on somebody's finger. The presence of men, and especially when they're in good spirits and good health. And so that is why it's very, very critical to uplift them and to target them. And we have to reach them where we are. Now, I am a believer. I have a strong faith, but we know what is happening in church today. Whether you're talking about white churches, brown or Black churches, the numbers are down. And there's a reason for that. There are many reasons for that, but that's not today's topic. And so we have to consider other places and spaces where men are gathering. And we have to shine the media spotlight on it. We have to hold our Black media accountable to talk about healthcare issues and not just the scores of the ball games, right? And who got shot, right? We have to put healthcare, to me, as a priority when we open up the news, when we consider these conversations and have these courageous conversations. Where's the healthcare and all of that? So that's where I would start. It definitely impacts Black men, and we have to go where Black men are.
Thank you. So I'm going to pivot a little bit to community engagement, which I am a huge fan of. And I know based upon the conference I attended with you all, it was a key focus, the importance of community engagement and education. And I learned so much in this space. Some of your guest speakers, particularly I believe it was a professor at Xavier that worked on the public health education for COVID. Amazing work. So, and he really did educate us on what he did from a community engagement and how effective his work was. So with that, I'll ask, what are the most effective ways to educate and engage Black communities about Alzheimer's? We're all very curious, particularly this audience, because we're working right now to we're doing our webinars, but we want to do more. And we're really looking into moving that to a different direction and even getting deeper into doing more things in this space. But from your perspective, what are the most effective ways to educate and engage Black communities about Alzheimer's disease, and particularly in reaching caregivers and the younger generation?
So first off, kudos to you and Links to Equity. What you're doing is very, very helpful. It's impactful. I definitely want to start there. And then, of course, we have some of those tried and true methods. And of course, that is the Faith Center. The spiritual, the faith, the religion has always been a major, major part of our community. In fact, we call it an institution. That's how important it is. But we have to be more creative now. And I don't want to say we want to reinvent the wheel. I'm saying we just need to add another wheel. Okay. We need to add another wheel. And so I like to teach my students. In fact, they know me for this comment I make often in the classroom. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you on a favorable basis. It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you on a favorable basis, because you can collect all the business cards and have all these folks in your database, but they can't support you because they don't know you. So it's about building quality relationships. And I think all of us are givers and takers. But when we talk about having a favorable relationship, having a quality relationship where someone will refer you, someone would speak your story when you're not around, then that means we have to be a giver more than a taker. We have to be a giver more than a taker. And so this type of work requires one-on-one relationships. It is really true. I know you, Deanna, you know me. I speak favorably about you. You speak favorably about me. That's what needs to happen more often. I would also say ask for help. My best students ask for help. It's the C and D students who don't ask for help. And so when you are struggling, when you're a caregiver, when you're a survivor, when you know other loved ones who are struggling, ask for help. Don't keep it to yourself. We need courage in this space to know that you are not alone. I would say be an informed advocate. It's one thing to advocate for someone and hold your hand up and all of that. But if you don't know the key indicators, if you don't know where resources are, then when people need you the most, they can feel let down because you're not informed. Okay? So know the early detection signs. Share what you've learned, or even the fact that your family is going through something. You'd be surprised how many people are keeping it to themselves. And then when someone is hospitalized, when someone passes away, oh, I wish I would have known. Why did they, we suffered that same thing. See, we have to connect. We have to connect. And as we know, in any type of protest and any type of work, there's power in numbers. I'll also say, today in marketing, storytelling is everything. It's the key to capture a person's heart. And from a physiological perspective, the heart is actually the brain of the body. The heart dictates everything. And so if we can touch people with a story, that's effective in so many systems, so many ways to gain interest and attention. And then since we do have advances in technology, I would say infographics. Infographics, they are powerful now. People don't want to read, they're definitely not going to read dissertations and some of these scientific articles. But how can you tell your story with bright colors and a few facts and, nice colorful arrows and pictures and things like that? So those are some of the things that I would recommend.
What you're saying is music to my ears. Because like I said, we are working on a phase 3, a phased iteration, and I think that we hit everything that you just said. So I'm so excited that we're aligned with an expert like yourself and trying to do our best to ensure that we hit community. So that was really great insight, and very exciting to know that we're on the right path. And we will obviously run all of this by you to make sure that that we're getting it right. So thank you for that. So here's another area, and Dr. Thurman, or Pastor Thurman, he may be on the call. He's one of our community leaders, and he was very adamant from starting this program. He believed that it was very important that we have resources for caregivers, because in these sessions, we would bring on, during our first iteration of this project, we would go to certain communities, work with those communities to identify what resources are available. And many people, they just don't know. When we were at your conference, Black Men Brain Health, we heard the caregiver there say he didn't know about any resources and he wished he knew about resources. So one of our iterations is we're going to build out a resource. And I think that we talked to you, we may have even chatted with you about it. We're going to build that in our next iteration so that we can go state by state and identify resources and then build upon those, because things change, and with today's politics and policies, funding is likely maybe issues. So we want to get that information out to community. So the question I have is around access to resources and support is, what resources exist for Black families? And this may be in Virginia or in North Carolina, but what are the resources that exist for Black families affected by Alzheimer's, and how can we improve access to culturally competent care and support networks?
So I'll start off with a big shout out again to you all. Everyone, please stay in touch with Links to Equity first and foremost. And then our leading organization is the Alzheimer's Association, an amazing national body that's actually on the ground. And so reach out to the Alzheimer's Association, find out what is happening in your community. And if they are not doing anything in your community, reach out and say, I need help. They will show up, they will help. Now, in terms of our community, people might not be familiar with Us Against Alzheimer's. It is an African Americans Against Alzheimer's. They're doing amazing work. There is the African American Alzheimer's and Wellness Association. They're making a difference. And I think sometimes people don't think about the NMA, the National Medical Association. That is our largest and oldest national organization representing African American physicians and patients in the United States. Now, again, I don't have time to go into the history and why they were even established, but just know that AMA, the American Medical Association, wasn't always open to us, just like many of our other systems. I mentioned that there are other forms of dementia. There's the Lewy Body Dementia Association. So you might want to check into that. And then when I think about the NIH, even though they are also challenged by the most current political and legislative moves that are happening, or let me say executive orders, that the NIH has a campaign called Unite, the National Institutes of Health, and they put a stake in the ground saying that structural racism is real. But it is the foremost scientific research body in our country. And so if you just take a look at what NIH is doing in the Unite campaign, you can also get connected with amazing scientists and researchers around healthcare. And it's always, we have to come together. We have to share the resources that we know. And so I'm looking forward to what you're going to build out, however I may assist. But I think those are a number of ways that we can stay aware and be engaged in this. And when we think about support, think about how you can support the people who are doing the work. You mentioned funding, no doubt that's an important part of this, but also think about where people like you and me come from, as in the space, universities. So support faculty, support researchers, support students, undergraduate, graduate degrees, terminal degrees, support people where you can. If you can't be out there protesting, if you can't be out there doing the research, you can't be out there doing what Links to Equity does, support them. We need your money. We need your time, talent, and gifts. So that is a way to be a part of this support system.
Thank you, Dr. Stroman, and thank you for the shout out to dementia with Lewy, LBDA, the Lewy body dementia. My dad had dementia with Lewy body, so I'm very familiar and holds a special place in my heart. Okay, so we're getting close to the Q&A, and I think we have quite a few questions. But what I want to do is to talk about a call to action. You I mean, you've already stated some of them already, so I appreciate that. Um, but and, you know, and I think that, you know, if there's additional insights into this question, because like I said, you did share quite a bit about what we can do as individuals, families, and communities today to support brain health, reduce risk factors, and advocate for better policies and research on Alzheimer's disease. I'll be a little more specific because I do think that you shared with folks things that they can do, and please feel free to add others. But also, let's talk a little bit about research. We didn't talk a whole lot about research today. A little bit initially. From a research standpoint, how can we support and what can we do to support from because I know it's challenging to do. You said early in this discussion, you said that from an oncology standpoint, and there was another disease state. We're just not as cardiovascular disease, I think. We're just not as advanced. We don't have the innovation or the treatments that those disease states do. We do have some new things, but a part of that, I think, is it's very challenging to do research on Alzheimer's. Talk to us about that. Why is it a bit more challenging to do research in the Alzheimer's space than some of these other disease states? And then what can we do to help from a research standpoint?
The Academy is built off of kissing the ring. Kissing the ring. And what that means in the Academy is that when we conduct research, you oftentimes, more often than not, is you follow the faculty member or the researcher that you're working under. So that means that bright-minded undergraduate who decides to get a master's degree, that bright-minded master's degree student who decides to get their doctorate in this space, they are going to be mentored, they are going to be guided, they're going to be counseled by someone who's been there, done that, and got their t-shirt. So the nature of the Academy is not to go off and do your own independent research. No. When you are coming up in the Academy, you are to follow someone. And for a number of right reasons, right? Because you need guidance, you don't want to make mistakes, you don't want to cause any harm, you don't want to, your methodology would be off, your statistical analysis. So it's a matter of you kiss my ring, and then once you achieve the ring, then you can go and do more independent research. So here's the challenge. If the person that you are seeking to do your particular research under doesn't look like you, they're not doing the research that you want to do, then you will be guided. You will be asked to kind of shift and do this type of research. So what am I saying? If you are white, brown, or Black, and you want to do Alzheimer's research on the Black community, if you want to do something that isn't out there and it's not popular, then it's going to be harder for you to move forward. Not impossible, but it's going to be harder. So what we can do is support young people who want to go into dementia research with scholarships, with fellowships, giving them confidence, applauding the work that they're doing, and also speaking to faculty member and researchers to say, this is what we need in our community. So that those people who have already arrived, they already have their rings, will say, yes, I'm going to shift a little bit and address this particular population that needs much more attention and needs much more research. But bottom line, it goes to the fact that we don't have a lot of people in this space who either look like us or who are doing lots of research in this space. So what we're talking about is shifting this centuries-old model of the Academy. Now, will it take time? Absolutely. But again, we can put pressure on the system. And when we have speakers at conferences, what you're doing tonight, to pour into those people, thank you for your work. We want to hear more of this. Write their universities, write the chairs, write the provost. The provost is the person who's the academic. The provost, he or she is the academic leader for the university. Write the provost and say, we want more research in this particular field, right? That's what we need to do. I'll also say that there is the NIH, again, the foremost research institute in our nation, to reach out and say, this is what we need more of. There are the academic journals. So find out about the academic journals, your particular one, and write the editors, right? And then we talk about the clinical research, what's happening on the ground, but to be a part of that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. This was an amazing discussion, and you are just a wealth of knowledge and so authentic and just real, and it's just always a treat to be in your presence. So thank you for being with us this evening. We are at our Q&A time, and as you were talking, I'm going to cheat a little and ask the first question myself. Because it made me think. I'm curious what you think. You're a professor, researcher. I'm just curious. What do you think? How do you feel about recognizing where we are? We talked about the NIH. We talked about academia. How do you have any suggestions for us? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just know that you're experienced in this space, probably more so than us, as to what we can do in these shifting times, from a policy standpoint and funding for research. And, we know what science means. We know that all faces need to be in science and research for the sake of science, not even about DE&I, about science. So with that said, can you give us some, I want to say hope, but some advice?
It's about hope.
Yeah,
It's
hope.
absolutely
Yeah.
about hope. Yeah. So number one, I'll say we've been there before. Not us here physically, but our community has. And the reason why I can continue to be in this fight, and it is a fight, it is a war, is because because of my faith, I'm a prisoner of hope. And so when I think about what Harriet Tubman went through, or people, our ancestors who had to do this work with a shotgun in their face, or having just watched a family member or a loved one be murdered. So how can I sit on the sidelines? How can I? I'm privileged. Here we are on Zoom. I know where my next meal is coming from. I know how to get across town, whether it's my own car or a shared ride. And so how could I not do this work? But that's me. Everybody has to look at their own journey. I just feel a personal responsibility. I think education is important, and everyone can be educated in this space. Again, you might not be able to pronounce all the words. You might not be able to understand some of the concepts, but the basic fundamentals are out there and they're available. One can go to the library, or one can point and click on your computer and find that. So the education piece is critical. I will also say that we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. There are people out there right now who are working to eliminate our reality. They don't believe in who we are. They don't believe in lifting up all of humanity. So we really don't have a choice. And especially if you care about those who are coming after us, the younger generation, we have to be there for them. And we have to help them as much as they might get on our last nerves, right? Because we know the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until age 26 to 27, even though they do things that make us shake our heads, right? But we still love them, and we want them to have some of the finer things in life that we have. So this is the work, and we cannot turn our backs. We just can't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. So I have 3 questions, and I want to try to get to all of them. So we're going to try to get through them where there's enough time for everyone to hear your voice. This is from Daryl Love. When it comes to mental health and talking with many brothers, I found they're often reluctant to speak with a counselor, especially a woman. What advice would you give to help overcome this issue?
Keep trying, as in find another counselor, right? So if you find someone, whether it's the female or you're not connecting, don't feel that you have to stay with that one. But I think this is a part of that stigma that we have to help reduce or eliminate, that having therapy is something that is feminine. It is something that is not needed because I can go speak to my pastor. It is something that costs a lot of money. These are the things the things that we need to overcome. There is no doubt that a minister, a spiritual leader, a pastor can be wonderful, but many of them are not equipped. They don't have the medical. They don't have the mental health. All of the things that you go through, just like a pastor goes through study, the physician, the healthcare counselor, the licensed, certified, they go through study. And so we have to help people understand that it is much more than just talking to a friend, right? There is actually some very, very specific things that need to be asked. There are very important things that need to be heard with a professional that knows how to listen well. And then, of course, if we know that it is a situation where it is medical, there might need to be medicine that is prescribed, right? And so that's why it's important to have those conversations. But we don't ever want to be so pushy and shove someone into that space, because that will just backfire as well. But I would say just gentle conversations and finding that trusted person where quite possibly they would respond to.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have a question. I'm going to skip Julie C. and ask Julie C. for clarity, because it appears that her question was while you were talking, and you've gone through a lot of different topics. So I'm going to ask her to provide greater insight. Okay, actually, I got the insight. Okay, Julie C's question is, thank you. Does this apply to all age men? And I think that what she's talking about is she's asking whether or not Alzheimer's pertain to even younger people, since most people may equate it to older men.
Yeah.
I think, and Julie, provide clarity if we got it wrong.
It is a brain disease, Alzheimer's, that causes a slow decline in memory, thinking, and reasoning skills. And so generally we don't see these types of behavioral changes until you are older. But again, there are other forms of dementia, right? But generally we won't see the multiple signs and symptoms until later on in life. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now we have Sarah Lewis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. This is there's probably a drug on trial for Lewy body dementia. So I'm not sure. I know I wouldn't be familiar with it, but I'm willing to do the research for Sarah. Sarah Lewis wants to know, what do you think about experimental medicine CT 1812 for LBD, for Lewy body dementia? Not sure if you're familiar with that. I'm not. And then she also wants to know, what are the resources here in Lexington, Kentucky. She knows about Sanders Brown Center on Aging. And for that, I'm going to ask Gina to answer that, but I'm also going to say that your local Alzheimer's, we've had your local Alzheimer's Association on for a speaker, and they provided a number of resources. But Gina Hayes Sanders is amazing, and really has a good grasp on what's available locally within the Lexington community. So Gina, do you mind answering that question for us?
No, I don't mind. It's kind of extensive. What we can do is get the name of the person and provide the sites for them. But what they can start with is the Alzheimer's Association that's local, and it's on Paloma, and it's off of Man of War. So we can provide that information for them. But they have, Living with Alzheimer's in Lexington, and a number of other resources. But it's hard to just say them all out just in a minute. But what we can do is provide a list for this individual or anyone who's on the webinar right now. So
Okay.
that can be the follow-up, and I can provide that for you if that's helpful.
No, that's super helpful. What we'll do is we will, when we send out, excuse me, the recording, and we'll resend the survey. And you guys, please feel free to log into your survey. We have 5 minutes left. We will provide a list in our follow-up to this webinar. In our follow-up email, we always give a recap and we'll provide that answer. Well, I'll also do the research for you on that investigational drug that's probably in trial for LBD. I'll do some research for you on that as well.
Excuse me, and we can make sure we have the email and their telephone number for them.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Gina. Okay, before we get in, there was one more person I wanted to be able to say a word or two as we wrap up our evening. But before I do that, I have to take my hat off and give many, many thanks to Dr. Stroman. Your discussion was amazing. And thank you so much. Like I said, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's just so enlightening whenever I'm in your presence and company. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a friend of Links to Equity and agreeing to have this discussion with us this evening. It was just very informative, and your experience and your perspective is just wonderful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to remind people to please increase your education, especially around the foods that you eat, especially around movement, sleeping, and all of that. But thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, Jason, can we have the deck come back, and then we have 3 minutes, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And but there's also I want to tell them about the next webinar. Okay, so we did Dr. Stroman. No, we did our Q&A. We did our discussion. And now here's our feedback. So guys, please give it to him one more time, Jason. Can you go backwards? Thank you. If you could please just scan the QR code and you'll have access to the SurveyMonkey, that would be great. And Catherine has a link right in our chat so that you can access the SurveyMonkey from that as well. Okay, next slide, please, Jason. Okay, so we are ecstatic to give you insight into webinar 4 of 6. So this webinar, we're getting a little fancy. We focus on men's brain health on this webinar. The next webinar, we're going to focus on Black women's brain health. And we're going to talk with Dr. Michelle Jackson from the Black Women Inflammation and Tau Study. And she's going to provide a presentation about the work that she's doing and the importance of community engagement and what she's doing to engage community to be participants of this very important research that she's doing. And I hate to put her on the spot, but if she could, it's 6:58. So if you could just spend 30 seconds to a minute, Michelle, just introducing yourself and giving us a teaser for what's ahead next month, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am on the West Coast, so I know there's a little bit of a time difference where most of you likely are, but thank you, Dina. My name is Dr. Michelle Jackson. My foundation is as a nurse practitioner, but I am a nurse scientist and professor, and I do work in the community as a community research and engagement coordinator, specifically surrounding Black women and brain health. And so I get the honor and privilege to speak to being the fourth of this 6th seminar or webinar, if you will, about brain health when it comes to African American women. And Dr. Stroman, you fabulous job, and I think you laid a beautiful foundation for coming into now talking us talking about us ladies when it comes to our brain health and the things that we as African American women are dealing with, as you said, on the mental, the physical, and the social aspect. So thank you. Sorry if that was over 30 seconds.
No, you were amazing. You were perfect. So thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. We look forward to our next webinar, which is going to be Monday, April 28th at 6 p.m. Please join us. Please tell your friends and community. The more the merrier. We love engaging community and providing as much insight into this important disease as possible. Again, a huge shout out to Dr. Stroman for an amazing discussion this evening, and a huge shout out to our participants and our guests who attended and listened and commented throughout. Your participation and your engagement means the world to us, and you keep us always thinking of better ways that we can improve how we engage, how we share information. And I'm super excited to bring our next speaker, but also the next iteration of our project. So thanks again and have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. Oh, please follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook if you haven't already signed up. Here is our QR code for LinkedIn. Here's our QR code for Facebook. And the beauty of this is that you'll always know when the next webinar is, and as we make iterations to the project. So please do follow us. Next slide. All right. Thanks, team, for all your hard work and making this happen tonight. It was a huge success, and the information that was shared was amazing. So thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing evening.